Welcome to part 2 on selecting a kiln. In this section we're going to talk about things like kiln size. The 4 major factors you should consider about the size of a kiln you're about to purchase. We'll talk about configurations, things like top loading versus front loading kilns, ceramic fiber versus fire brick, elements where they should be located, and finally the temperatures that you need to consider when you're firing either glass or ceramics. So let's get started.
I just can't make up my mind what size to get.
Picking the size of kiln that you want to purchase can be a confusing task. Here's 4 items to think about. First, what's the size of the piece you're going to fire? Let's say you're going to fire a vase that's 6 inches high. Keep in mind the kiln shelf itself is probably half an inch up to an inch thick. Therefore, you want to have at least a chamber that has 8 inches in it. Or, put another way, if you're going to set the piece on the kiln shelf, there needs to be 7 inches above the kiln shelf and the roof of the chamber. If you're going to fire a plate that is 16 inches in diameter, you're going to want to have a kiln that is a width of at least 18 inches, giving you 1 inch on each side. Another factor might be production. If you're doing jewelry, you may want to do a number of pieces, say 10, 15, 20 at a time. To do so, you must figure out what size these pieces are, how many can you fit on a shelf, and keep space between them, and also space between them and the edge of the shelf. So that's another factor to consider. Another factor is simply the size of the kiln itself in your home. Large kilns can get very big. Make sure you have enough space to put the kiln, keep it 6 inches away from all walls, still open the door on the kiln and be able to feed your materials into the kiln and out safely. Finally, we'll talk a little bit about stacking. This is more appropriate to ceramic kilns, but you could stack a glass kiln with a couple shelves. Let's say you want to do that. You need to make sure, number 1, that you have side elements to bring heat into the side, since the top element's not going to go past the first shelf very well. And secondly, you'd like to make sure that you have about 6 inches free space above the shelves to allow the heat to flow freely. So those are some ideas on picking the size of your kiln. Think about it before you actually select the kiln you're going to buy. Next, we're going to talk about kiln configurations and how they might affect you.
When I figure to configure, it gets bigger.
Our final topic in this section is the configuration of the kiln. For example, you might consider, do you want a top loading versus a front loading kiln? Top loading kilns have been around a long time, and probably most of the kilns around are top loading kilns. They have a disadvantage in that when you open the lid, the heat escapes more rapidly out of a top loading kiln. Also, if you like to manipulate the glass when it's hot, comb the glass, do enameling, things like that, it's much easier to do that in a front loading kiln than it is in the top loading kiln. You're more likely to burn yourself in the top loading kiln when you reach in. On the front loading kiln, it'd be nice to have a door that opens 180 degrees. Not all do, but some do. Because you may actually bump against the door, particularly if it has elements in it, and burn yourself on the door if it doesn't open but 90 degrees. While we're talking about elements, glass kilns generally have elements in the top that force the heat down on the glass, whereas ceramic kilns have elements in the side. However, both ceramic and glass kilns can be purchased with elements in the sides and the top. In fact, some can have them in the top, sides, and the door. Again, if you have them in the door, it would be nice to have the door open wide enough that you don't bump into the hot elements. The other thing about the elements is that they can be in grooves held by pins, or they can be in what the manufacturer called dropped recessed grooves. In this case, the elements just slide in the groove and are held there by the groove itself. This type of element in the groove is a lot easier to replace if you have to replace elements. Then you might decide, are you going to have a ceramic fiber inside, or are you going to have fire brick? The advantage of ceramic fiber is the kiln will heat much faster, Also, you don't have fire brick on a big kiln falling down on your glass works and getting into the glass. The disadvantage is that that don't last quite as long as the fire brick kiln. The fire brick will last considerably longer than a ceramic fiber kiln will. Talking about temperatures, 14 to 1700, any kiln that will do that will be able to do glass, china painting, fusing, slumping, things like that, enameling, annealing. From 2000 to 2300, if you're going to do low fire ceramics, that's fine. But anytime you want to get to porcelain or stoneware, you need to have a kiln that goes to 2350 degrees Fahrenheit.
What else are we going to talk about?
Well, there's only a couple other things we're going to think about. If you like to do beads, you might want to get a bead door into your kiln. Make sure that the kiln can have a bead door. If you want to be able to see inside the kiln to see the hot glass melting and moving around, you might want to get a window. This will add about $80 to $100 to the price of the kiln. But my suggestion is this. Look at the configuration that suits you and then buy the biggest kiln that you can find with that configuration. In my experience, the things that I've heard most are not my kiln breaks down too often or my kiln is too hard to use. The biggest complaint I've heard is, I wish I'd have bought a bigger kiln. You're never sure what you're going to want to try next. And if you haven't got a kiln that's big enough, that means you have to purchase another kiln if you want to do it. So buy the biggest kiln that you can buy that fits the configuration that you'd like to have. Next we'll talk about controllers. Mechanical, digital controllers. That'll be part 3. And then we'll show you some video of various kilns.